Night slid over the sea like a deep veil, and Odysseus, his heart at last lightened of its torments, fell asleep in the gentle shadow of the Phaeacian ship. Around him, the silent rowers cut through the dark water with the precision of the stars, guided by a course known only to the gods. The Phaeacians, a people friendly to travelers, moved forward without fatigue. Their silver oars tracing upon the sea the gleam of a sacred path. The hero rested like a child at the heart of sleep, unaware that even the waves bowed before his destiny. Under the motionless sky, the vessel glided toward the shores of Ithaca, the kingdom he had not seen since the first cries of the Trojan War. Dawn had not yet been born when the sailor set him down upon the sand, surrounded by the treasures they had given him, shining chests, rare fabrics, and the fulfilled promise of a long-awaited return. Then, silent as shadows, they took to the sea again. But Poseidon, jealous watcher of ocean roads, saw the ship slip toward the horizon, and his heart blazed with bitter wrath, for the Phaeacians had yet again aided the man whom he hunted in anger. With a single gesture he raised the petrifying wave of fate. The ship, already near its harbor, turned into white stone and sank beneath the sea, an eternal reproach erected by the god of the depths. On the shore of Ithaca, Odysseus remained alone, asleep. It was Athena with a light step who came to him at the newborn dawn. She took the form of a young shepherd, a thin smile, eyes bright as lightning that reveals hidden truths. Odysseus, awake yet wary, did not at first recognize the goddess. He questioned her, hesitant, for the land that stretched before him was both familiar and strange, like a dream too ancient. Athena, who had wrapped the island in mist, revealed its shapes little by little. Mount Neriton, draped in forest, the cave of the nymph, secret and silent, and the winding paths that descended toward the heart of Ithaca. Then Odysseus felt his soul swell with a tight, almost painful joy. He was home. But no peace awaited the hero. The suitors feasted in his palace, devouring his wealth, courting his wife, while Telemachus sought far away the shadow of his lost father. Athena, at last revealed in her splendor, touched Odysseus' brow, and with a divine shimmer transformed him into a bent old man. Skin like parchment, rags on his shoulders, a beggar whom no one would recognize. Thus she said, "You will walk unseen among those who betrayed you. Watch, prepare yourself, and when the hour comes, I will stand beside you to strike." Odysseus bowed his head before the goddess, but in his heart already burned the flame of vengeance. He gathered his staff, gazed one last time at the sea that had shaped him so deeply and wounded him so fiercely, then set out upon the paths of his island in the guise of a stranger, returning to his own life. Odysseus resumed his story, and his voice grew softer, as if memory itself were sitting beside the fire. Guided by Athena, I finally walked upon the soil of Ithaca, but beneath the guise of an old beggar, bent like a tree, beaten by the wind. No one was yet to recognize Odysseus, not before the hour set by the gods. I made my way to the hut of Eumaeus, my faithful swineherd, guardian of my herds and of my memories. His home was humble, but watched over by 4 vigilant dogs, and by the uprightness of his heart. When he saw me, he first believed me a lost wanderer, yet he welcomed me without hesitation, offering bread, wine, and warmth. For hospitality is the last treasure of righteous men. As we ate beside the fire, Eumaeus spoke of Ithaca, ravaged by the suitors who devoured my household as a pack of wolves tears at its prey. He spoke of me, Odysseus, as of a master long gone, but alive in his memory. His words were simple, yet profound, and no king was ever honored with a pure loyalty. I listened in silence, and my heart burned as if someone were stirring a coal beneath the ash to test his soul and keep my secret I told him a tale of exile, a false past, woven of distant adventures, yet where the truth of my own sorrows sometimes trembled through. Eumaeus listened as one listens to fate, never guessing that the master he mourned was seated before him, warming his hands at the same fire. When the night grew thick, he offered me his bed, kept for himself the hard ground, and covered his shoulders with a simple animal skin. It is not right, he said, to sleep well when a guest lacks warmth. Thus he kept vigil in the cold to honor a stranger who was unknown to him, his king. Before sleep took me, Eumaeus confided his fear. Telemachus, my son, had defied the suitors and sailed in search of my name. Danger hovered over him like a vulture above a lamb. I listened, my heart tight, but I kept silent. The time to strike had not yet come. Night slid over Sparta like a velvet cloak, and Telemachus, son of Odysseus, still kept watch, his heart beating to the rhythm of foreboding. Athena appeared in his dream, radiant like the first edge of dawn. Son of the patient warrior, the time for waiting is over. The suitors tighten their grip, your palace fills with insolent cries, and Penelope, your mother, is assailed by dark visions. Rise, return to Ithaca, your father is near, closer than you think. At these words the young prince awoke with a shiver, carrying in his soul the lingering glow of the divine message. Menelaus, king of Sparta, offered him a farewell feast, and Helen, the fairest of mortals, blessed him with a graceful gesture, as one blesses a traveler called toward his destiny. adorned with splendid gifts. Telemachus returned to his ship. At his side walked a seer, Theoclymenus, a hunted man pursued for a crime whose he denied. Take me with you, son of Odysseus, for I read in the signs that the breath of your destiny already brushes against mine. And Telemachus, generous as dawn, brought him aboard. Meanwhile on Ithaca, in the hut of faithful Eumaeus, Odysseus, still beneath the rags of a beggar, listened to the swineherd's tales. Time seemed suspended, as if the gods were holding their breath. They spoke of the arrogant suitors, of Penelope's tears, of the absence of the young prince who had sailed across the sea. Odysseus, behind his shadowed eyes, felt a spark ignite. The thread of his life was weaving back toward him. On the Aegean Sea, Telemachus' ship fled before the evening wind. Dolphins leapt beside the hull like silent guides, and the stars, one by one, lit the celestial vault to watch over the young prince. But the suitors of Ithaca had already devised a trap. In the shadow of a cliff, their ship lay waiting, an iron hook set into the sea, ready to seize Telemachus as he passed. Their plot dripped with hatred like a venom distilled through the night. Athena, vigilant guardian, turned the ship away from danger. The wind shifted as if an invisible giant had laid its hand upon the sea. Telemachus landed in a secret cove, escorted his companions toward the town, then departed alone, hidden, toward the hut of Eumaeus, guided by instinct and by the breath of the gods, by the crackling fire. Odysseus and Eumaeus shared their meal. Night wrapped the hut in a mantle. At the newborn morning, when dawn of the rosy fingers brushes the swineherd's hut with light, Telemachus returns, guided by hope, his heart pounding, eager to see that humble refuge again. Before him, Eumaeus runs forward, moved like a father. His breath trembles, his eyes shine, for he had believed the young prince lost in the snares of the proud suitors. They enter, and in the shadow of the quiet hearth stands the stranger, none other than Odysseus, but beneath his ragged cloak none could yet see the flame of the king still burning in silence. Telemachus sits down, his thoughts are heavy like the sky before a storm. He speaks of the suitors who devour his inheritance, who humiliate his mother, who threaten even his life. Odysseus listens, and his heart, like a bow drawn too long, groans without a sound. He speaks gently, in the skin of a simple wanderer, courage, son of a noble king. He will come, the one you await. A father never lets his house fall into ruin. But Telemachus lowers his eyes. Hope feels too fragile for him to dare touch it again. Then Athena descends, invisible like a star fallen from the morning sky. With a single gesture, she touches Odysseus' shoulder and transforms him. The rags become a shining garment, his skin grows smooth, his stature rises, and his eyes, those eyes that have seen so many seas, become once more the eyes of a king. Odysseus shines. Telemachus steps back, afraid. Are you a god, or a spirit come to trouble me? But the king opens his arms, and his voice, heavy with 1,000 absences, says, "No, my child, it is I, your father, Odysseus. I have returned." Then Telemachus wavers, his heart hesitates for just a breath, then breaks like a jar too full. He falls against his father's chest, and the two weep like the sea rising and falling against the cliffs of their island. Long they remain embraced, reconciling in a single breath 20 years of silence. When the tears grow quiet, the king becomes again the strategist, the patient and cunning man whom the plains of Troy once feared. They speak in low voices, weaving together the thread of a coming vengeance. returns. Return to the palace, says Odysseus, let nothing be revealed. Treat me as a stranger, a beggar of no importance. Watch their faces, their gestures, and wait for my sign. Then, only then, we act. Telemachus nods, his eyes burning with a new flame. He is no longer a hesitant boy. He becomes the king's ally. Eumaeus returns, ignorant of the miracle. He looks at the wanderer, stunned by his sudden beauty restored. But Odysseus answers in a calm voice, I have washed the dust of the road away. The gods at times take pity on those who wander. Eumaeus does not question mysteries. He prepares their meal as the sun climbs into the clear sky. Dawn rises, gilding the roofs of Ithaca, like a gentle hand that wakens the sleeping island. Telemachus is the first to rise. His heart has matured in a single night. For he now carries the secret of a king returned. Eumaeus prepares the way, the faithful swineherd, unaware of the truth, walks beside the young prince up to the palace gates. There Telemachus enters silent, like a warrior before the storm. And the maidservants rush to him, joyful to see alive the one they believed lost. In the great hall, the suitors feast already, their heavy laughter rolling like drums. At the sight of Telemachus, their uproar freezes for a moment, as brief as a breath of wind. But soon the insults return, wrapped in honey and poison. They pretend joy, offer him seats. They do not truly wish to share, then plunge back into their excessive banquet. Telemachus endures without a tremor. The inner sea of his heart is now deep, and nothing can trouble its waters. Meanwhile, on the road to the city, Odysseus, still dressed in rags by Athena's will, walks beside Eumaeus. The swineherd speaks with compassion of the misery of beggars and the injustice of the powerful. Odysseus listens, and beneath his tatters beats the heart of a king, discovering his own house as a stranger. At the palace gates the old Iris appears, a street wanderer drunk on pride, jealous to see another beggar step onto his territory. With words full of venom he threatens Odysseus with his fists. The suitors laugh, they want a spectacle, a battle of the wretched. Odysseus with a calm gaze accepts, and with a single movement he brings down the insolent man without even soiling the dust on his feet. The laughter of the suitors becomes a drunken thunder. They mock Iris, but fail to see that beneath the rags lies the strength of a sleeping lion. Odysseus begs from table to table. The suitors give a few crumbs, but with the arrogance of those who believe themselves masters of what does not belong to them. Only young Anthinomes offers a human gaze. Odysseus speaks to him with the gravity of experience. The gods see all, and the folly of men is always repaid. Leave this palace before it is too late. But destiny, woven long ago, already holds the young man's steps. Evening falls, Penelope, having heard of her son's return, wishes to see the beggar who accompany him. But before he can approach, Melantho, an arrogant servant bought by the suitor, insults Odysseus, mocking his appearance and his poverty. Then Odysseus, with a calm voice, like a deceptively peaceful sea, replies, I am a man accustomed to misfortune, but the gods can change fortune as swiftly as the wind turns a sail. Fear their justice, insolent servant. She flees, stung by a shame she cannot understand. At last Penelope descends from her chambers, radiant with dignity, like a moon watching over the night. The suitors fall silent, for even in their plundering they fear the light of her presence. She observes the beggar beneath the dust on his face. Something troubles her heart, a familiar gleam barely perceived. She says, traveler, stay tonight. When the hall is empty, we shall speak, you and I. Perhaps you know news of the man I still await. Odysseus bows his head and night has not yet fallen, when a coarse commotion stirs the threshold of the palace. In the middle of the courtyard, Iris, the quarrelsome beggar with trembling legs, catches sight of Odysseus, still unrecognizable beneath his rags, and jealousy flares within him like a dry twig catching fire. He spits insults, threatening to chase away this intruder who dares beg on his ground. The suitors, delighted by this wretched spectacle, form a circle around the two men, like children around a fire. One of them, playing the cruel arbiter, announces that the victor will eat at their table and earn the right to remain in the hall. Iris shivers, but pride pushes him forward. Odysseus, for his part, rises slowly, and beneath his rags the strength of a king glints like a hidden blade. Athena, unseen, ignites a spark of power in Odysseus' heart. His shoulders broaden, his arms tighten like the beams of an indestructible ship at the sight of this unexpected vigor. Iris pales, but it is too late to retreat. They step toward one another. Silence is born. Then Odysseus, with a single blow, feels the wretch as one knocks down a worm-eaten door. Iris collapses, and the suitor's laughter bursts forth, drunken and cruel. They drag him by the ankles and throw him outside like a dog chased away. Odysseus returns to his seat, head lowered, humble in appearance, but his heart beats like a war drum. Then Amphinomus, one of the few who still possess a spark of kindness, offers Odysseus a cup of wine and a gentle word. Odysseus answers with the gravity of fate. I see your righteousness, young man, but the gods weave the future as they please. Leave this house before the storm breaks. Amphinomus listens, thoughtful, but the threads of destiny already tightening around his ankle. Later, when the wine flows and night grows heavy, Melantho, a maid spoiled by the suitors, insults Odysseus again. She sees in him only another beggar, not the deep-rooted pillar of the house. But Odysseus strikes her with a single look. I am poor, yes, but one day the gods will know whose heart is dry and whose heart is just. She turns her eyes away, stung but blind to danger. Then the queen appears, the suitors rise, for her presence commands the same reverence as the sea when it suddenly rises. Athena inspires her, filling her throat with grace and light. Penelope speaks, and her words flow like noble honey. She gently reproaches the suitors for their excesses, demanding they behave as civilized men. They are caught in their own snare, dazzled by her beauty, seduced by her voice. They promise her gifts and riches, but beneath her veil, Penelope's heart is a fortress. When she returns to her chambers, the suitors, still heated, turn toward Odysseus. Eurymachus insults him, calls him a wretch, a useless drain, and hurls a stool that strikes the king's shoulder. A murmur runs through the hall. Some find the gesture cruel, but none dare speak. Odysseus restrains himself like the sea, preparing its way. Night thickens over the palace like a veil of dark velvet. The suitors sleep, drunk on wine and arrogance, in the vast and empty hall. Odysseus, still disguised as a beggar, remains awake. His heart keeps watch with him. Telemachus approaches without a sound, guided by the invisible thread that now binds father and son. Together they remove the weapons hanging on the wall, spears, shields, breastplates dulled by time, and hide them in a secret chamber. Athena slips through the air silent, making their work echo less, as though the shadows themselves lend their aid. When all is ready, the queen leaves her rooms, her cheeks marked by the pallor of sleepless nights. She descends, drawn by the thought of the beggar who inspires in her a strange trust. She sits before him in the glow of dying torches. He looks at her, and beneath the folds of his worn cloak, His soul breaks softly at the sight of this woman who has waited 20 years for him. She speaks first, her voice trembling like a golden string. Traveler, tell me where you come from and whether you have seen my husband, my Odysseus. For my heart suffocates beneath the weight of uncertainty. Odysseus, master of gentle cunning, then begins to weave a tale. He speaks of a journey, of a distant meeting with a noble man, brave and thoughtful, a certain Odysseus, whom he describes with such precision that the queen shivers. Penelope listens, suspended on his words. She believes she feels the shadow of hope brush her cheek, but she holds back her tears as one holds back a too powerful sea. Penelope then commands, Euryclea, wash our guest's feet. He is weary, and the duty of hospitality is sacred. The old servant approaches, her memory filled with ancient days. She dips her hands into warm water and touches the traveler's skin. Then suddenly her hand finds a scar, a deep, unmistakable mark, the one young Odysseus received while hunting the boar on the slopes of Parnassus. A cry escapes her, but Odysseus seizes her throat with a gentle hand. Silence, old mother, say nothing, the time has not yet come. Euryclea trembles, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. She whispers, not knowing whether she should rejoice or fear. My child, you are finally home. Then she falls silent as her king commanded. The queen who has seen nothing speaks again. She confides her doubts, her fears, her weariness before the suitors. She tells the beggar of her strange dream. A goose I cherished was devoured by a great eagle, but in my sleep the eagle spoke to me. I am your husband, I return to scatter the shadows, and yet I fear that dreams are but lying clouds. Odysseus answers with deep gentleness, wise queen, your dreams come from a god, and they speak truth, but he does not yet say that the eagle stands right before her. Before retiring to a room, Penelope announces to the beggar her intention to finally choose a husband to end the humiliation. Tomorrow I shall propose the trial of the bow. He who strings Odysseus' bow and sends an arrow through the 12 aligned axes, that man shall become my husband. Odysseus bows his head, and in the shadow of his eyes a burning light glows. Night begins to fray. A frozen breath crosses the great hall, where Odysseus has found nothing but a bed of skins stretched between the pillars. Sleep flees him, his soul turns like a tormented sea. He thinks of the suitors, of their insults, of the shame they made his house drink, drop after drop. He murmurs in the dark, and Athena appears, not as a blinding burst, but as a presence that soothes a heart set ablaze. Courage, son of Laertes, the day is coming. Before night falls, you will have reclaimed your kingdom. Odysseus breathes more deeply, like a warrior preparing to cross the final gate. Dawn rises, painting the walls in rose. Penelope descends, her head still heavy with dreams. She prays, she implores the gods to show her a clear path between fidelity and despair. Barely has she spoken her plea when Zeus, master of the sky, strikes the horizon with a solitary thunderclap, pure and dry like a divine word cast into the void. She shivers in the courtyard. A humble miller hears that same rumble and murmurs, "O Zeus, may the sound be the sign of the proud man's punishment." Odysseus hears it, and his heart recognizes the promise. Then the palace comes alive with footsteps and comings and goings. Some maidservants pass near the beggar without granting him a glance, but others, corrupted by the suitors, snicker and whisper, words sharp as needles. Odysseus watches, he engraves each face into his memory. The hour of justice approaches, but not yet. Not yet. A little later, two men enter the courtyard. Eumaeus the faithful swineherd and Philoetios, guardian of the herds. They see the beggar, they see his eyes, and something within them, a dark intuition, trembles. Odysseus speaks gently, "Stranger, you remind me of a king we lost. If Odysseus returned, no man would ever dare raise his head against him." Odysseus, concealing the storm in his heart, simply replies, "He will return before this moon dies. You will see him with your own eyes." The two servants then feel, without knowing why, that his words are true as the earth beneath their feet. Noon approaches, the hall fills, the suitors enter like a disrespectful herd, laughing, stomping, demanding wine upon wine and bread upon bread. They see the beggar and their insults bloom like nettles in high summer. Antinous sneers, Eurymachus scoffs, others strike the floor and demand entertainment. But Odysseus remains unmoving, like a rock against which the wave breaks. Suddenly, the servants bring the meats, but a strange trembling passes through the hall, as if the very stones were breathing. The torches burn more faintly, then flare up again without being touched. The men do not see what only Odysseus understands. Athena walks among them, sharpening the threads of fate. Some suitors burst into forced laughter, a hollow sound, almost frightened, as if something or someone unseen was watching them. In her chamber, Penelope adorns herself. Athena touches her as a breeze touches a field of wheat, and the queen shines as though she had regained the light of her 20th year. She descends, and at her sight the suitors ignite with desire. They blaze like torches, torches that do not know they will burn soon. For the last time, Penelope then announces the trial. He who strings Odysseus bow and sends an arrow. Penelope descends into the hall with the deep chest, where sleep the things that never die. She opens the great carved wood and draws forth the bow of Odysseus, the one no other man could bend, the one only the king had mastered, as one tames a lightning bolt. She carries it into the hall, majestic and calm, and declares in a clear voice, the trial begins. I will marry the one who can bend the bow of Odysseus and send an arrow through these 12 aligned axes. The suitors laugh, but the laughter trembles Each knows this bow is an impossible challenge. Telemachus steps forward first for sport, he says, but his gaze burns with the fire of a hero's son. He grasps the bow and almost bends it. A flicker of pride passes through Odysseus' eyes. The son is worthy of his father. Then come the suitors, one after another, muttering, grumbling, cursing, warming their hands by the fire. Greasing the bow, trying again and again in vain, but none can bend this fragment of the divine. The bow mocks their hollow strength. Then the beggar Odysseus in disguise steps forward, humbly, respectfully, and asks, "Allow me to try the trial as well." The suitors erupt, "What audacity! An old man, a beggar!" Antinous fumes, Eurymachus sneers. But Telemachus speaks, and his voice carries an authority he did not yet know he possessed. "This bow belongs to me. No one may deny a stranger the chance to try." The hall grows still. Destiny holds its breath. Odysseus takes the bow in his hands as one greets an old friend. He turns it, he feels it, examining every curve, every fiber. The suitors still mock. Look at the old man, he warms his gnarled fingers. But already the bow sings, yes it sings, like a harp finding the musician's fingers again. With a simple pure motion, Odysseus draws it, and the bow bends effortlessly, docile as a wolf reunited with its master. Silence falls, one could hear a speck of dust roll. Odysseus takes an arrow, places it on the string, and with a sure motion releases it, swift as lightning. It passes through the 12 axes without touching the edges, as if the very air had parted. The hall remains mute, suspended, shattered. Odysseus straightens, his shadow unfolds, his eyes become those of a king returned. Then he speaks in a breath that carries thunder, "We have played enough." Hardly has the arrow reached its target when Ulysses casts off his rags, revealing his chest marked by the seas, his stormy eyes, his stature of a king returned. Telemachus, Eumaeus, Philicius, recognize him like a rising sun. The suitors, however, recognize him as their end. Ulysses places another arrow and declares, calm as death, "You thought a man would never return. Here I am." Antinous seizes a cup of wine, unaware that his hour has come. Ulysses draws the bow, releases, and the arrow pierces his throat, like truth penetrating a lie. The insolent chief falls, spilling wine that mingles with blood like a spilled sacrifice. Silence shatters, the hall becomes a storm. The suitors scream, treachery, conspiracy, but Ulysses thunders with his voice. Treachery, you are the ones who devoured my house, corrupted my servants, insulted my queen. You reap what you have sown. They search for weapons, but Telemachus has removed them all. The trap has closed, and they are the flies caught in the web. Telemachus, standing at his father's side, his face transfigured by courage, raises his spear. Father and son fight together for the first time like two aligned stars. Eumaeus and Philocus, faithful to the end, rush forward, brandishing their sturdy spears. Ulysses' hall then knows the war it had long restrained. Arrows sing, bronze strikes, cries break beneath the blows, and Ulysses advances like a river that has held back its waters for too long. Eurymachus falls, Amphinomus follows. Each shooter receives the weight of his deeds at the tip of a spear. The hall becomes a red field, but Ulysses does not stop. He is justice reclaiming its place. Athena appears partially in the form of Mentor. Her gaze shines like a new sword at her mere presence. Ulysses' courage becomes a torrent, and fear falls upon his enemies. She deflects the spears, misleads the enemy hands, guides the blows of the allies. The goddess does not kill, she simply reveals the true nature of men. Gradually the tumult fades, like a fire being smothered, until the last breath. The suitors fall one by one, like ears of grain cut by an inevitable harvest. The silence that follows is a cathedral-like silence. When all is done, Ulysses calls for the maidservants who betrayed the house. Telemachus leads them to the courtyard, makes them purify themselves through labor, and then pronounce their sentence so that the house is cleansed of its shadows and lies. It is a harsh song, but necessary for the elders. Ulysses does not rejoice, he restores. Thus ends the night of punishment. The torches go out, the bodies are carried away. The dust settles, Ulysses, standing in silence, finally breathes the air of his home, free once more, and ready for the final trial, to find Penelope.
The news spreads through the palace like a wind charged with lightning. The suitors are no more. The hall, still heavy with the tumult, seems to hold its breath. Euryclea rushes to Penelope, her eyes sparkling with a broken joy. Queen, it's him, Odysseus has returned. But Penelope's soul is a fortress. 20 years of waiting, 20 years of prayers, 20 years of illusions. She has learned to distrust miracles. She replies simply, if it is truly him, let the gods bear witness, but I will not believe without proof. She then descends to the hall, her step dignified, her eyes veiled with disbelief. Odysseus stands there, tired, wounded, but upright like an oak that no storm has broken. They look at each other, the years, the seas, the wars, all of it suddenly held between their two gazes. But Penelope does not yield, she speaks softly, weighing each word. Stranger, if you are Odysseus, give me a sign that only he could know. Odysseus smiles, a smile of shadow and light. He knows well the heart of his queen. Turning to her servants, Penelope commands, move my bridal bed and prepare it for the stranger. Odysseus shudders, he straightens, wounded in soul, and answers in a voice that vibrates. Who could move our bed? I built it around a living olive tree. Its roots plunge into the very earth of our chamber. Only a madman would wish to uproot it. Then Penelope falters, tears spring forth like a long restrained fountain. It is him. No one else could have known, no one else could have spoken these words, which are their shared roots. She runs to him, embraces him, and their two souls, separated for 20 years, finally reunite. Athena extends the night, pushing back the dawn with her gentle hand, so the lovers may reclaim every lost fragment of time. They speak, they laugh, they cry and hold each other, telling two Odysseys different, yet woven from the same thread. The thread of fidelity. The bed olive protects them like a tree watching over the bird, returning from the longest journey. Before sleep claims them, Odysseus confides to Penelope that one final trial awaits him. To journey again to seek the peace of the god of the sea, so that the waves may cease chasing his destiny. She listens without trembling. She knows some journeys are written even before the birth of man, but she also knows he will return. In the purified palace, silence becomes gentleness. The king and queen finally sleep together after 20 years of storms. The house breathes, the island breathes, and the gods watch over them.
Dead still lie in the great hall, their faces frozen by divine justice. But outside in the city of Ithaca, the parents of the suitors gather furious, ignorant of the truth. They march like a black tide, their eyes blazing with anger, their hands ready to seize vengeance. Odysseus stands atop the house, his figure tall and proud, and speaks with a voice that carries like thunder. Listen to me, inhabitants of Ithaca, your sons devoured my house. They trampled the laws of men and offended the gods. Their fate is just, the families hesitate. Some fall silent, others growl. But the fear of divine wrath begins to seep into their hearts.
Athena finally descends, her light soft and relentless, and says, cease your quarrels, mortals, let peace return to Ithaca. Odysseus is your king, justice has spoken. Let your hands relax and let your hearts remember that the wars of men are over. Anger freezes, fear turns to respect. The families disperse, leaving the king and his household intact. Evening falls gently, and for the first time in 20 years, Ithaca breathes freely. The fields, the forests, the rivers, all seem to bless the king's return. Odysseus walks through the house, Euryclea following silently, while Telemachus watches his father and finally understands what it truly means to be a king. Penelope joins them, her hand in Odysseus's, and the world feels right again, as if time itself had bent to repair its mistake. The gods, invisible yet present, smile upon the restored household. The sea which parted the lovers for so long retreats gently. The wind ceases its quarrels, and the light of dawn illuminates Ithaca, like a king returned to his throne. Odysseus closes his eyes, at last peace is here. Tears mingle with laughter, and life resumes its course in the house where courage triumphed over betrayal, where love survived. 20 years of wandering and pain.